Welcome back to the SDG Warriors Podcast, where storytelling and curiosity collide to create impact. I'm Simar Mohanty, the team lead and student coordinator of the SDG Warriors. We're a team of passionate student changemakers and STEMists dedicated to achieving the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals by 2030, leveraging our superpowers in STEM education and 21st century skills. Every episode, we bring you real stories of edu heroes and STEM experts from the grassroots who show us what it actually looks like to be the change. Whether you're a student ready to lead, a teacher shaping future innovators, or a parent nurturing purpose, or simply someone who has a curious mind, you are in the right place. Earlier today, we trekked the African savannas with Dr. Andrew Stein, and now we submerge into the ocean's final frontier in conversation with someone who tracks the ocean's most enigmatic wanderers and connects the threads of biology from the deepest trenches to the very clothes on our backs. So please welcome Dr. Tierney Thys, who's a Nat Geo explorer, marine biologist, and filmmaker. And to give an overview, she is a leading expert on the giant ocean sunfish, or the Mola, and she has traveled around the globe, tagging these bizarre and beautiful creatures to understand their hidden lives. But then curiosity doesn't just stop at the shoreline. She was a daily explorer for the online game Animal Jam, bringing real world science for millions of kids just like me. And she's the creative force behind Around the World in 80 Fabrics. Well, Dr. Thys, it's truly such an honor to have you on our show today.
Oh, well, I am so excited to be here and just so impressed with the work that you guys are doing. It's just never been more crucial, never been more urgent. So your mission is just absolutely vital. And the more recruits you can bring in, the better. I think, there's nothing more critical than saving our habitats that we have right now. There's so much left to save. Beautiful landscapes and oceanscapes left to save. And I think if we can get the word out that who we are and don't give up hope and be passionate, I think that's vital. So I'm really impressed with your group. It's just incredible to be here, and thank you so much for the invite.
That truly brings so much joy in my little heart. Well, before we dive into today's conversation, we have a tradition back here at the SDG Warriors. To help our listeners audibly visualize the entire experience, Dr. Thys, can you tell us where are you located, what is the weather like outside, and what can you see from your window right now?
Oh, well, it's I'm in Central California. Carmel, to be specific, on Monterey Bay, home to the famous Monterey Bay Aquarium, the first to really exhibit sunfish in this country. And it snowed. It snowed here. It doesn't snow here, and it snowed. And my kids are out playing at the end of the valley, Carmel Valley, in the snow. So. More snow here than like Park City, Utah, which is a famous ski resort. And out my window, well, let's see if I can show you.
Oh, wow.
Well, let's see. I don't know. Can you see it?
See the landscape, yes.
Yeah, it's well, I look out on a big valley that's protected and will never be developed. So it's something I really relish, is that view of a protected place. Once you let it go to developers, then it's gone. So you have to protect it from the beginning.
I mean, I remember when I had shifted back to where I live right now, there was a huge forest, and we used to see a lot of stars at the night. But now, people have developed that area completely. It's become a residential, as well as they have put out malls over there, which is good for the human community, for connecting with people and all that. But it has destroyed the natural habitat, and honestly, I miss
Mhm.
looking out at the stars at the night. So back here where I live in Bangalore,
Mhm.
India, the weather right now, it's very chill and lo-fi. That is, the nights are especially cold over here. Even though during the day we can feel that the summers are beginning because March is starting, my favorite season.
Mhm.
And outside my window, I can see a few people who are going out on their midnight stroll. So they go out in the evenings, they also go out in the midnights. And just like Taylor Swift says, midnights become my afternoons.
Oh my gosh, you've had to switch your calendar so that you can capacitate all these crazy times.
It's completely fine. I love talking to people. So now that we have mapped the terrain above the sunrise, it's time to submerge and start right at the beginning with your first dive. Dr. Thys, looking back at what were your earliest sparks of curiosity or wonder that connected little Tierney to the natural world, and what lessons did being underwater at 15 teach you about observation, fear, and the feeling at home in the unknown?
Well, I was born in California, and we would go to the ocean, but to a part of the ocean like Santa Cruz, which was really known for its surfing waves. And for a little person, those are kind of scary. And so I um, we moved when I was 10 to Vermont, which is on the totally other side of the country and way far from the ocean. It's landlocked, and we moved next to a beautiful waterfall. And every day I was in that waterfall, looking at the fish and swimming and just being with the fish under there. Um, and that made a big impression because I would come home from school and I just go right in the waterfall. And I could see, I'd have the little fish would be, cleaning my feet, and I could watch what they were doing and ducking under the rocks. And then in college, I was able to go to the Great Barrier Reef to tropical scuba diving, which was really my passion. And did I got to explore the reef, and that made all the differences. Being in warmer water that was calm, and I was mesmerized. Yeah, there was so much diversity, so much color, so many interactions. I barely knew where to look. Um, and then when I came back, I got a job working in television, which I didn't mean to do. I wanted to be a science writer. I didn't want to do television. But I got a job in television, which was really a mixed blessing. It was great because I got to work on a big National Geographic series called The Shape of Life. And that just exposed me to a whole new way of looking at the ocean. I mean, you have a question in there about biomechanics and diversity, and doing that series, helping doing the research and find the stories was huge for me. So it gave me a framework to understand this explosion of color and explosion of relationships, and say, oh, I think I'm starting to understand this now. So that was my introduction, really, to the ocean.
That really paints a very powerful image, Dr. Thys, as you were describing all that color and all the wonderful things that you were exposed to, especially when you're young. When you're young and you're exposed to such things, that leaves a deep imprint on your mind. And I think that feeling of being 15 and suspended in a total alien world. So many of us,
Mm.
when we face something new, like a hard exam or public speaking, or even moving to a new school, our first
Mm.
instinct is generally to panic and to find the exit. But you leaned into the fear and you found wonder instead. That
Mm.
first lesson was not about the ocean, but it was from the ocean, teaching you
Yeah.
to be present, to observe, and to find your place in something so much bigger, so much more wonderful than humans or ourselves. So, yes, that combination of curiosity and applied engineering, when we researched about you, Dr. Thys, we know that that definitely shaped your path. And considering that the Mola, it's a creature that defies the biological rules. It looks half a fish, and it's often
Mm.
considered as the ocean's most clumsiest wanderer. So, what
Yeah.
was your aha moment when you realized that this odd animal would become your life's greatest puzzle? And what made you believe that the world's weirdest fish could actually be one of the most important? If you can shed light on biomechanics and the design of the fish, that would be awesome.
Yeah. No, I found biomechanics a really great way of understanding the natural world because, you know, all life is subjected to these physical rules, whether it's diffusion or osmosis or, you know, these physical laws that govern what you can and can't do. And but life, and especially animal life, which is what I know best, um, has come up with so many wild, diverse ways. We call this convergence. Like when something, an animal, all animals that are in the water are somewhat streamlined. And so that is convergence. They have a taper at the, their body tapers. Often their fins fold in, um, and they're very graceful. So so then you look at the mola and you're like, you don't really taper. You don't really look like a tuna or anything like that, um, and yet they're everywhere. Nobody knows about them, but they're everywhere. They're in all tropical and temperate oceans, even ocean basins, even up to the Narvik, Norway. North of the Arctic Circle, you find them there. So, so I was like, "What's your story? You're so successful, your body type, and you're so weird. Um, what are your secrets?" And I'm naturally, excuse me, I'm naturally drawn to weird creatures. I'm not naturally drawn to dolphin, although I love dolphin. But I would be more drawn to something like a hagfish or a blobfish, or these these critters that don't get as much of the limelight, as much as the Hollywood screen time as something like the mola, which is just shaped so strangely, and everything about it has been changed. And when you look at it evolutionarily, it's nothing like a shark, which is very ancient, the shark form, very ancient and old. These are really quite modern. They evolved around 40 million years ago. So when you look at when fish evolved, they evolved in the Cambrian explosion 500 million years ago, and these mola appeared like 40 million years ago. So they're really actually quite modern, even though they don't look it. Yeah, I have a little one right here.
Yes.
If you can see it,
Oh,
it's from the Monterey Bay Aquarium. Yeah, and yeah, you're right. They don't have a tail. Um, they swim with only their dorsal anal fin. They don't swim with their caudal fin, their back fin. And they do a little bit of steering with that back fin, but that's it. And then they can go quite deep to 1,000 meters, as well as spend time up at the surface where they warm up their bellies. And I think it helps speed up their digestion. And then we find them different species all over the place. There's 5 species. And they, depending on what ocean basin you're in, you'll find one or the other. Yeah, but you'll find a type of mola anywhere in the world, which is fun, even in the Indian Ocean.
That sounds incredible. Molas are everywhere. And I think the weirdness, that was the clue that first draw people like us into, oh my God, what's it about this species that's so successful? That signal this massive fish was doing something totally different, and then you led a legacy, by studying its baffling design. We learned how they dive into these icy depths and they thoroughly recharge at the surface, which also tells us a lot about ocean's health. So, Dr. Tierney, can you shed some more light about how the climate crisis is affecting the molas, and has it changed some of the migratory patterns?
Oh, the migratory patterns. Well, we all know that the ocean is warming, and we have additional patterns. Like here in the Pacific, we have the Pacific Decadal Oscillation, which is a longer El Nino, and it's switching into a warm phase as well. So we're getting a double punch. That doesn't mean that all the ocean is turning, cold, because there are parts of the ocean that are incredibly warm, and the animals are making it work. But climate change is certainly wreaking havoc on what can live where in terms of the prey items that the mola eats. And people are tagging mola pretty, not that frequently, but there are still people out there tagging. I don't have any tags out right now. But when we have tagged them, we see they kind of stick to a home range. Like the ones in Galápagos stick to a home range. The ones in Japan, they don't really stray that far from where we tag them, but they do enter into northern currents where there's more food available. But there was this one mola that went from Taiwan to New Caledonia. It crossed the equator. And then we have a really big mystery in that one of the species of mola, the Mola tecta, is showing up quite a lot of times here in California. Generally, the mola here is mola. And now we're seeing more and more Mola tecta. And that was only known from the southern hemisphere. So how it crossed the equator and how it got up here, and only big ones seem to appear up here. And by up here, I mean California coast and Oregon and farther north. So, yeah. So that's a big mystery. Where are the big tecta coming from that live down in the south usually? Another big mystery is we're working in Galápagos and we see always the same size mola. No big ones, and it's actually Mola alexandrini. No mola. We see just the big one, well, not super big, kind of middle size, and no babies and no super big ones. So, and we know they're there year round. So we're like, they just pop in out of nowhere in the certain size. So that's another big mystery. Where are they spawning? Where are the little guys? At least in Galápagos. We see lots of little guys up and down the California coast. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think there are more mysteries here on planet Earth under the water as compared to out in space. There's so much that we can explore and that we can learn from. And in fact, a few hours ago, we had a conversation with Dr. Andrew Stein, and he talked about how a small change in the ecosystem can ruin, or it can change the effect on an entire species. And it's just like we have in math, where we have equations, and either whenever you change either of the parameters, not only if you make a change on the right hand side, or the that affects the left hand side, even if you make a single change to the right hand side, that can alter things present on the same side. So any changes that we make, that must be carefully thought of, because our thing has a ripple effect. So that's a big thing that we need to think about whenever we are interacting with animals, in my opinion. And of course, the climate crisis has a detrimental impact. Even a change in a single degree, it can wreak havoc. So yes, we can see its effects. Like Bangalore, the city where I stay in, it's landlocked, and even though it's landlocked or anything, we don't have that much of connection to the wild over here because it's landlocked, but we still feel its effects. As I was describing, the days are super hot, and then the nights get super cold, and because of that change in temperature, sometimes we even have our exams during these times, so students fall sick while adapting to that sudden change. And those changes are becoming even more contrasting. So yes, we do feel its effects, and we should definitely do something about it. But
Yeah.
yes, even in this changing climate, these quirky giants, they're becoming our living sensors, and they're proving that even the ocean's clumsiest wanderers, they are truly essential threads in the web of life. So thank you so much for sharing about the Mola Molas.
Yeah. They occupy an interesting part of their ecosystem in that as they get older, they tend to focus on jellies. And in some places, we have too many jellies because the food fish have been fished out, leaving just the jellies. And that's happened in several places around the world. Not everywhere. Jellies aren't a demon, jellies are necessary. But in some places, they've gotten a little bit out of control. And so it's really good to have a predator of the jellies and to keep that population intact until we know more about where they're migrating, where they're having their youngsters. Um, when they're little, they have all sorts of different things that they eat, but as they get bigger, they tend to focus on eating just jellies. Yeah. So that's a really important part of their diet, important part of the ecosystem. And you're right, when you make a small change, like, I liken it to the Titanic, which has a little trim tab on it. And you make a little tiny adjustment in the Titanic, and that has a big ramification as it moves away from where you made the adjustment. So there's a lot going on, all sorts of little adjustments going on with climate change, and so lots of changes, I think fortunately people have stopped saying you can stop climate change. We need to adapt to climate change because it's here to stay. And just like you were saying, we're finding ways to adapt. We go to class in the middle of the night or something. Um, and our human behavior, we're very good at adapting. So I think we'll be okay. But all the other animals, they're not so fast at adapting. So that's really something we have to keep an eye on and worry about.
Absolutely. And I do wish we had the option of attending class, whenever it was possible by having pre-recorded sessions. But yes, that was back during COVID, where we sometimes had that option. But now it's regular school. We have to go in the morning and we return in the afternoon. So yes. But yeah, it also has, we are almost adjusting back to the times like it was before COVID. So yes.
Yeah.
Dr. Thys, you were a daily explorer at Animal Jam, and we still love Tierney's Aquarium. So, how did you approach designing content that balanced real science with real wonder? And how did being inside a game world it change the way that you think about teaching, storytelling, and science communication?
Yeah, no, that was kind of a wild experience because you don't see any of the players. I didn't see any of the players. I was inside the game and I would be asked a question, I would answer it. It would be recorded and then it would play. And so I never really got to know the players, unfortunately. But I found that to be a very powerful way of learning because it's fun. You're entering into this whole universe and you're interacting, and then we would find different places to answer the question. Like I'd be in a shark suit one week, or capturing letting an octopus go the next week, or and fortunate to live right on the ocean, so I could go and do those things. But no, I loved Animal Jam, and I was excited that so many students were able to pop in and ask questions and watch videos. And yeah, it's that was a really fun part. I think I did that for 7 years. Yeah, and we did over 450 videos. So it was definitely a fun universe to work in, and the makers of Animal Jam were just delightful as well. So yeah, it opened up a whole new way of teaching in this sort of gamified, playful way, where it looks quite a bit like the Monterey Bay Aquarium. So that's fun.
I That's super nostalgic because I still remember coming home from middle school. That was peak sixth grade experience, dropping my backpack and sinking onto my beanbag just to log into Animal Jam. And
Uh,
I would spend hours decorating my home, like we called it
uh,
dens. And I had a beanbag in my den as well because they are super
mhm,
comfortable. And I was a bunny actually, and trading
uh-huh,
outfits with friends and hopping around crystal sands, especially during
mhm.
the summer vacations. And now, summer is starting, so it brings back a whole lot of memories. One of my absolute favorite spots was Tierney's Aquarium. I would click
Uh,
on every creature, watch your videos, and feel like I was diving into another world. And after all these years talking with the Dr. Thys behind Tierney's Aquarium, honestly, that makes the child in me so happy. So thank you so much.
well, I'm so delighted. That's so great to hear. It's definitely fun to make. Yeah.
Yes, and I had lots of fun playing it. And talking more about your legacy, Dr. Thys, you have spent your life studying how living systems they build beauty from fish to fibers. So,
Mm.
what first made you look at fabric and think that this is biology too? And can you tell us the tale of Around the World in 80 Fabrics?
Yeah, I think it's It's curious. I still have all these friends who are like, why on earth are you doing fabrics? It has nothing to do with fish. And well, that stems from I used to do student expeditions for National Geographic. I'd take students into the field, into Bali or Baja or Monterey. I'd take them in different places, and I would more and more Belize, more and more see just plastic covering the beach. We would clean it up, make sculptures out of it, and then the next morning it'd be filled with plastic again. And then I learned that the plastic, a lot, you have these big chunks, but then the fabrics that we wear are made, 60 to 70% from petroleum. They're made from polyester, acrylic, nylon. Look at me, I'm in my parka because it's snowing, but this is nylon, this is modal. This will degrade better than this, but it put me down a wormhole, and I was working with some students back here at our middle school, and we decided National Geographic had a competition called the Geo Challenge, and we were finding lots of, we were tackling plastics, and I was mentoring a team, and they said, well, why don't we just show people what clothes are made of? Like, I opened my closet and found an oil spill, in there instead of fabrics that would biodegrade in my lifetime. I just found an oil slick. And so that in my naivete, I started to think, well, if I can just gather all the alternatives that we used to use, we didn't always clothe ourselves in petroleum and acrylics and polyester. And there's all sorts of amazing fabrics out of India, that's for sure. And amazing dyeing practices and designs. I mean, India is just a wealth of creativity when it comes to fabrics. But I started to gather that, after the competition with the kids who made this beautiful quilt of natural fabrics, I saw it as just a phenomenal teaching tool. Like Animal Jam was a great teaching tool, and the Mola in its quirkiness drew attention as a teaching tool. Fabrics was a whole different group of people in fashion, fast fashion, which is super bad. Everything just falls apart, If there's one thing people take from this podcast is don't buy Shein. Don't buy Shein. Don't buy fast fashion. It's just a pollutant. And so I met Carol Dunham, and we formed this. She's a medical anthropologist, also from National Geographic. And we formed a nonprofit, and we've been gathering fabrics all over the world, and then exhibiting them and talking about them. And I think with the fabrics, what I love about it is that it looks at the whole ecosystem, not just the ocean in the fabric, but the land, the ocean, the fabric, how these things that we put on our bodies are related to the health of our ecosystems. And I don't think a lot of people put those things together. They don't think, oh, this cotton I'm wearing is it's fixed with all sorts of chemicals that are destroying the natural land. Too much water, too many fixatives so it doesn't stain, so it doesn't wrinkle, so it doesn't do all these things. So cotton, although it biodegrades, is not the best thing. But there is a movement. So I'd like to think that around the world, Innate Fabrics helped push this movement along, is to reduce all these chemicals that we put on our clothing and see their ramifications when we go out into the natural world, see, the runoff that's going into the ocean because of bad dyeing practices, or the pollution that's going into the rivers or the lakes and streams. So, but there is this movement to make things better and to clean up our ways and to have certifications that you need to meet before you can sell. So it's really opened up a lot for me to think about, because we want to support makers that are doing the right thing and that are thinking about the whole system when they put on their clothing, because each one of us can be part of that. We can figure out how to make things not so caustic. I mean, a lot of these clothes that are healthy are more expensive, which is a problem. But we can repair stuff that we have. We can hang dry so that we're not shedding as many plastic fibers into the ocean, which is 35% of the ocean fiber pollution is plastic. So, and it adheres other pollutants up to a millionfold, which is a lot. It's a lot. So it's not just plastic that's inert and animals eat it and then we end up eating it and it ends up in our brain. That plastic is carrying chemicals that we have put into the ocean. And then the fish eat those chemicals. It's a vehicle for carrying PFASs. I don't know if you hear about the PFASs and the phthalates, all these things that are endocrine disruptors. So it carries a lot of these poisons on the plastic, and those get eaten. But that said, there's always a rosy side to everything, and there's PFAS replacements, phthalates that you can't, countries that have banned phthalates. So we have movements towards getting rid of all these chemicals and really using our creativity that came up with them in the first place and making something healthier. So
That's such a powerful thread that runs through your legacy, Dr. Thys, following the pollution from the fish's body right back to our shirt stack. And I think it's a very important realization that fashion is sometimes not a biological choice. It's either made from a petrochemical, like a fossil fuel, or it's grown on earth, like a plant or sheep's wool. And I love how around the world in 80 fabrics that it flips the narrative. It feels a bit like the artifact of around the world in 80 days, and I love the wordplay on that. And it reflects because it's a journey across continents, which is not chasing time or money. It's chasing creativity, culture, solutions, the
yeah,
most human part of our existence. The project, it shifts the focus from guilt that we have done so much bad as a species to ingenuity, and it celebrates the makers, and the communities who are already working with nature. And it's a powerful reminder that it's all about making that invisible chain visible.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
yes, and that connection also that sometimes has a dark side. You mentioned about fast fashion, that has become one of the planet's biggest polluters, and yet most people they never trace their shirts back to the soil. So, Dr. Thys, how do you help students and audiences see that invisible chain from the wardrobe to watershed?
That's a tricky, hard one, I say, because a lot of fast fashion is so appetizingly inexpensive that and social media is no helper in this, because TikTok says, oh, get this for $4 and you look like this famous movie star, and won't that be great? And then you can just toss it because it was so only $4. So that's a tricky one. How do you get people to recognize the problem with fast fashion? And I think it's really just showing what happens to our clothing when we're done with it. It doesn't biodegrade. It just sits in these huge mounds, and we here in the United States, we offshore our waste to other countries. Vietnam, we used to offshore to China, but they're like, we're not taking it anymore. And so now we offshore to, places like Vietnam and China, not China, Chile and Peru. I've traveled to see just these mountains and mountains of clothing that's just been discarded. And Ghana's another place, Ghana and Senegal. So we offshore these pollutants, but we just have to know that there's no such thing as away anymore. It's not that big of a planet. There's no away. You can't throw something away anymore because it exists, and it's going to, like with plastic, it's going to exist for hundreds of years. So we need to find what to do with it. We need to treat our clothes with more respect so they last longer. And we need to figure out how to wash them so they don't fall apart so easily. And hang drying them is helpful. Not using strong detergents is helpful. Repairing and mending what you have. There's lots of movements to repair things, and the clothing coming from repair salons and repair cultures is so inventive and creative, and so there's lots of avenues to take. And I think when you wear something that's repaired, or you're wearing something that's from natural fibers, then you can cause a ripple effect that goes out, because then someone will be, oh, what are you wearing? I see you've mended all those little tears. And you can say, well, I've done this and this. And then they're like, oh, that looks so cool. It's so trendy. And then they go and tell their friend, oh, wow, I like that. That's a cool look. And so you create this ripple effect of all these different solutions. Yeah. So.
Absolutely. And I'm a big fan of patchwork. So I love people when they experiment with their creativity and make DIY stuff. And I think looking at the harmful effects that fast fashion causes, I mean, it's really horrifying. The idea that yoga pants, or the fleece jackets that can end up in the stomach of a sunfish, it makes the problem very personal. Like the loop is closed. Our land choices, our fashion, they're directly impacting the water. And there is no way in the environment, like you mentioned. If you care about the climate, you have to care about fashion. If you care about the water, you have to care about the soil. And that interconnectedness, that shows us that we, the consumers, are actually at the center of the web, and our smallest daily choices can either cause entanglement or it can create healing. And the systems thinking, where we see the big picture, I think that must be very central to your work, especially when you're literally guiding people through these ecosystems. So shifting to an EDUhero lens, leading Lindblad and Lindblad. Is that how you pronounce it?
Lindblad, yes.
Okay. Leading Lindblad and Nat Geo expeditions, your classroom literally floats between the poles. So, Dr. Thys, from the icy stillness of Antarctica to the coral gardens of Belize, how do you design learning moments for travelers and students when nature itself is the teacher?
Yeah, no, those are great expeditions, and I find them to be super transformative, especially for students who I get them away from their parents. And then they can just like open up into who they want to be and not feel like, oh, I've got my parents judging me. So I think that they're really important. And then just the normal expeditions where people get to see how much there is still to save, and the beauty of the world out there. So I think in designing the expeditions, is that what your question? How you design them? Well, we go to the most beautiful places in the world, and that's definitely attractive. A lot of people want to take their families, and sometimes, like in Belize with the students, we would gather all the plastic and then we'd make sculptures, and funnel creativity into these crazy trash sculptures, or just doing beach cleanups while we're out there, making sure that we leave wherever we go more beautiful than the way we found it. So never go to the beach without a little bag for treats and a little bag for trash. Always bring a bag for trash. So yeah, and so I think those expeditions are so important because they just showcase our absolutely beautiful world that's worth protecting. Yeah. So, and there's a lot of it still there left to protect. So I think we have plenty to look at and plenty to clean up. So.
Absolutely. And I love that you're an interpreter of the planet. Nothing builds more empathy and relatability in people as compared to when you actually see what you're interacting with, what you're protecting. And I think being ready for anything, that takes an incredible skill. Like when you're out there on these expeditions, a lot of times things don't go as planned. In a traditional classroom, the teacher follows a lesson plan, but your lesson plan is written by nature itself, by the wind, by the tides, and the wildlife themselves. And that difference in learning is, the difference in seeing a whale and truly understanding a whale. That we can see the difference, from reading from a textbook versus actually seeing it. And without context, the biomechanics, the social structure, the conservation challenges, it's just a beautiful sight. But when you bring the science into the story, those encounters stop being, just passive observations and materialistic, and they become more meaningful and more informed experiences that can forever change how we look at the world. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
that brings in a different way, a different lens. And talking about seeing the world through a different lens, let's talk about the healing one. The Blue Room, using nature imagery to calm and heal, was named one of Time's top inventions. So, Dr. Thys, what inspired your collaboration on the Blue Room project for incarcerated populations?
Well, so that was getting back to the filmmaking days when I was working with National Geographic, and then we had all this beautiful film and all this beautiful footage, and a lot of it not with people in it, just the beautiful places. And I got brought into that because of my dear friend Nalini Nadkarni, who was the leader of that project. And her favorite place is trees, and my favorite place is the ocean. So she would always say, well, what brings you calm? I would say, what brings you calm and peace? And she'd like, the trees, it's all about the trees. And then I'm like, wait, a lot of people get calm from looking at the ocean and the waves. And I got very interested in what is it that calms us down when we look at these. It's just footage, but our cameras are getting so good. I mean, 4K, 8K, they're they're just so clear and almost better than the real thing. And so I was like, to what point? Where do we take all this footage? And how is it having this therapeutic physiological effect on us, even when we're not there, but we look at it? And so one of the most isolated places is solitary confinement. And so that's where Nalini had good ties to the prison populations. And when she gave, I work a lot with, I used to work with the TED, Technology, Entertainment, and Design TED conference. And I got her up there on the TED stage, and she said, what about solitary confinement? What about toll booth operators? What about all these people who don't really see much nature at all? And then lo and behold, someone called from the Snake River Correctional Institution and said, we'd like to try this. And so we have some imagery and we're trying that. And what about some more? And so we did this experiment and we were able to publish it. And it was really, that was just great, because it seems very obvious that looking at footage would calm you down. But in order to get something implemented into our prison system, you have to publish in the prison journals. You have to talk to the prison population. You have to dive into the prison world. I mean, that's just the way to do it. And so we did our work in the Snake, up in Oregon, and found 26% decrease in violent infractions, which, leads to less costs, leads to less injuries. And so they were able to take advantage of that. And then I think it got replicated. It did get replicated all across the country. So that was really exciting work. Nalini is the one to really who championed that, and I helped out. So, but what came of that was I kept digging. I wanted to know the physiology. Why does it calm you down just looking at beautiful nature? And so I partnered with Stanford University, and we were able to look at people's brains real time. So when they were looking out at a beautiful scene, we could record the activity in their brain and see what parts of the brain were getting fired up and subjugated. So that paper has just come out yesterday. So I'm very excited. It was 5 years in the making, and that paper just came out in PNAS. So,
is it available for our listeners to read?
Oh yes, absolutely. I can send it to you after we're done.
Yes,
Yep.
absolutely. So our listeners can take a look at Dr. Thys' legacy. I mean, this is one of the most beautiful ideas that I've ever heard. We talk so much about saving the ocean, but this flips the story about how the ocean can save us. Taking marine biology and filmmaking and applying them to correctional psychology. And that really shows that the health of the planet and the health of the human mind, everything is interconnected, everything is intertwined. And if nature can calm and heal people in solitary confinement, we generally don't think about them, the prisoners. I mean, they have done something bad and we completely isolate them. But it's
Right.
really important to think about their lives as well. In fact, we did have an episode with an EDUhero, Dr. Kayla Holland, who talked about using innovative teaching methods to improve how they learn and how to change their lives using the power of education. So similarly, just imagine the impact that it can have even in our everyday lives, during exam exam preparation or moments of anxiety or during any stressful day. And I think that's a big takeaway, that connecting with nature, whether it's stepping outside and seeing the real thing, because nothing can beat that,
Yeah.
or immersing ourselves in a beautiful film. These days we have Instagram, and I get so very reels of such creatures. The sea lions, oh my god, they are my favoriteest creatures at the moment. And I would love to see, like, how if molas met sea lions, what would that interaction look like? Because I'm really curious to see that. So I think that looking at all those things, it's an evidence-based tool for mental well-being, and I think we should structure our feeds more towards that.
Well, I think the feeds need a lot of structuring. It's a lot
Yes.
of garbage out there, a lot of garbage, and so I think feeds can be really helpful for those snippets. But I think that's also training our brains to just want snippets, which I think is a little dangerous. So, um, but yeah, I think when we offer these things to to prisoners and treat them like real people, there's everyone's got a story. A lot of our, unfortunately, mental health institutions have closed down, and the prison becomes the place where these people who then become homeless are sent. They're just sent to prison, when they should be in a mental institution, in fact. So, all sorts of sticky problems that we've created for ourselves, especially in this country where we have 25% of the incarcerated people and only 5% of the population of the world. We have 25% of the incarcerated population. So we're not doing something right. There's huge recidivism and people coming back, and we're not doing something right. So we need to fix that. Good examples out of Scandinavia and other places, but we, mass incarceration nation is what we're known as. We need a lot of change to happen there. It's turned into just a profit business, like so many things. Everything is for profit, and you won't get it done unless it is. So, yeah.
Just listening and looking, sometimes when you look at all these problems, it really breaks your heart. But I think what we can do from our side is to be more empathetic and to listen to people's stories and to think from their shoes, think from their perspective, and just to be more kind and more open-minded and open to their world.
I think
So
that's totally right. I think we need to just be kind to each other, kind to ourselves. But really, we need to be kind to our fellow people, and not just be so self-centered. I bemoan the lack of altruism and the lack of empathy in society. We're being led right now by the most narcissistic, unempathetic person on the planet, which is so discouraging. I don't know, you probably don't want to talk politics, but it's just quite discouraging. But I think if you are kind to the person next to you, kind to yourself, kind to others, that's part of it. And then that ripple effect of how modeling behavior that you want to see. There was a great quote I love that was, if your lifetime goal is achievable in your lifetime, you're not thinking big enough. See, I love that quote, because you've got, automatically you have built into that a huge picture, a huge undertaking that's larger than yourself and something that you can't do on your own. You have to collaborate. And so I think I love that. I think, I can't do all the fast fashion stuff by myself. I mean, that's a huge project. And pretty much all the projects I've undertaken, they're things that I will have a small part in it. And I think this is one thing that your students and your listeners, you'll have a small part in something much larger than yourself. And that can be very satisfying, I think. Very fulfilling. Yeah.
Yes. It's all about those moving gears, which forms an entire system. It makes an entire machine work. And being a small part of it gives you so much more satisfaction, so much more better sleep, and a better quality of life as well.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And what you're doing is just so critical. It's so critical getting it out to, so many people can just tune in and they can see all these different podcasts that you've done, all these different people, and you provide access. And without access, you've got nothing. So it's great.
We will continue doing that, Dr. Thys. And now let's shift gears a bit, just like a sunfish gliding through the currents. So, are you ready for our super sunny rapid fire round?
Okay. Yeah.
So, Dr. Thys, imagine if the Mola could teach a class, what would its first lesson be?
How to find jellies.
No, I think that's true because I think they eat lots of jellies because they're easy to digest. I'm not sure because we as humans, we too have our own jelly forms. So I think you can just swallow it and I don't know. I'm not sure about that, but does it have a part in that? The digestive part?
Well, how would it find? I don't know how it finds these jellies. I mean, it goes down into what we call the deep scattering layer and then comes up. But how it finds particular patches, we don't really know that very well. So, yeah. So, how do you find food? And then what water patches to look for? They like to move in. The ocean isn't just static. There's parts of the ocean that move and carry more food than other parts. So how does it do that?
Yes, and their classrooms must be so much more fun because your entire school is moving. So
Yep.
yes, we get to see more world as compared to our still one place
Right.
classroom.
And some students need to move to think, need to move to learn. So they would be one. Their students would probably be that way.
Well, our next question is now every fabric tells a story. So, from silk to seaweed fiber. If your life's journey were woven into a textile, what textures or materials would it be made of? Would there be scales, salt, sand, or sky?
Oh my gosh, that's a difficult one because there's so many interesting fabrics. Wow. Well, sea silk has a really interesting story behind it. I mean, ancient sea silk were the byssal threads that hold the pinna nobilis clam onto the rock. And it's not a silk at all, really. It's not from caterpillars. It's from the clam putting down these little anchoring threads. And it's beautiful and gold and it's from an endangered species and only one person can harvest. And now they've just found another species that they can harvest from. So I think it'd be pretty fun to sort of trace being a sea silk.
That sounds wonderful. I mean, if I would imagine my life, it would be a loom band. Like when I was small, I used to make these bracelets using rubber bands. And
Uh,
if I had to put my life in the form of a bracelet, it would be the dragon loom bracelet. I mean, it has all these rainbow colors and it looks so cool.
oh, do you have one to show?
No, I think it's
Mm,
locked in my cupboard. But yes, I do have a couple of bracelets. I'll
mhm.
see if I can take them out and I can send you a picture.
Okay, yeah. No, a bracelet's a good one. Well, there's also there's this plant in Papua New Guinea called a billum bag, and it means womb because it stretches out and then it goes down. An amazing fiber, and the moms carry their kids on their back in these things, and the groceries, and they're made by a project called the 2 Mile Project, because women from the rural Papua New Guinea come in and they sell these bags in Port Moresby. So it's a really important source of livelihood, and it's a really interesting bag because of its stretching capability without elastane. Yeah.
Absolutely. And on the same note, quilting, like science, it's about pattern recognition, seeing
Mm-hmm.
structure emerge from chaos. So, Dr. Thies, if you could quilt together one human idea and one natural phenomenon, what pairing would make the most beautiful pattern?
Oh, oh, I'm sorry. I have to run and get something. I'll be right back. I'm sorry. It's
Yes,
just been
it's
over an hour.
completely okay.
I'll be right back.
Yes.
Sorry.
All right. Till then, if you have any thoughts, you can share them in the comments, and we'll be sure to feature your comments. If you have any questions, feel free to ask it, and perhaps after the episode, we can have Dr. Thies answer them. So, okay. I think I'm gonna play a little bit of music while you're still here. Let's choose which one to play. It's a bit too calm, but yes, it match the senses. It gets a This track is called Daydream. There's some bass.
Okay. Right.
Okay, yes, you're back.
Yes, and I actually have to go in about 3 minutes. So.
Oh, okay. So, I think Dr. Thies, I know this episode has gone for way too long, and I'm sorry about that. But I think this has been the best night for my entire month. So
Aw.
thank you so much for taking out time and sharing your stories with our listeners today. From tracking the ocean's most mysterious fish to connecting the threads between our closets and watershed. Your work shows that most impactful careers are the ones which are made by the ones who dare to connect the dots with what others miss. So thank you so much once again for inspiring us and for taking out
Oh,
your precious time.
yes, no, thank you for all that you're doing. I'm just so impressed. And I really respect what you're doing. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Thys. Um, if you love this episode, everyone, you can help spread the word by leaving a review and sharing it with your friends, classmates, and family. Remember to stay curious and be the change. And feel free to check out Dr. Thys' work in the websites mentioned in the show notes. Thank you so much for tuning in. Stay curious and be the change. Until next time, it's bye from the SDG Warriors.